Hi everyone, I'm Steve Stoller.
And I'm Shannah Haley, and this is Inside Plano, where we take you behind the scenes of our city.
We'll introduce you to the faces and places who help make this a great place to live.
And give us lots of reasons to love Plano.
Well, hello, Steve Stoller, and happy 2021.
Same to you. Happy New Year, Shauna, even though it's in late January now.
Yes. Sorry about that, everybody. If you notice, we have a new look and feel to the podcast. If you're listening, you hear new opening music. And if you're watching the video, you see it looks a little different. We have upgraded our platform. We finally realized we're probably never going to be back in studio, even after things come back to a new normal. And we kind of like being able to just dial in our colleagues. So we're on a new platform and we've made a lot of changes. So we hope you like the new look. We certainly do.
And this is our fourth birthday.
Yes, it is. Happy birthday.
This is our fourth year of Inside Plano. So, Shauna, in 4 years, how many podcasts have we done now?
Well, this is episode number 37, so that's our 37th. We did one every month, which is remarkable given that we were in a pandemic last year. We still found a way to make it work when we were completely unprepared.
So almost one for every year I've been alive.
Yes,
I wish.
exactly. We're almost there.
Yeah, actually, I think it's closer to half of the years I've been.
We're not going there. If I start doing that kind of math, even for myself, it'd be a little depressing because this year is a big birthday year for me. But we'll leave that to another discussion. I'm finally turning, 21. It's very exciting.
Yes. Well, let's talk about January and what's new in Plano for January.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually glad that you said that because this is another one of those instances where we're doing things a little differently on the podcast. I feel like you and I came back from winter break to just a time when everything was changing. It feels like we have new information sometimes multiple times a day. COVID, and we'll talk a little bit about COVID today, but the big news right now is the vaccine rollout across the state of Texas. And because of that, we just felt like, well, that's why the podcast is a little late this month because we've been really busy with dealing with that sort of thing. And getting things pulled together. But we thought maybe what would be better for you is to give a high level update of what we know at this point in January 2021, as well as give you an overview of things that are happening in the city because it's going to be a very busy spring. So it feels to us like it's March 2020 all over again, but it's really January 2021 and we're ready to launch into it. So Steve, you want to talk maybe a little bit about where COVID is before we talk about the vaccine. Let's talk about COVID itself.
Sure. Well, there was a time prior to the holiday season where we were hovering right around the 1% mark. And by 1%, what that means is 1% of Plano's total population had tested positive for COVID. Well, since the holidays into January, now we're up at 4% of Plano's population. And that's between 10,000 and 11,000 people who live here in Plano who have tested positive for COVID. So the numbers, looking back from when the pandemic started in March until January of 2021, the numbers have really gone up, but dramatically after the holidays. There was a time where we would rarely have 100 cases in a day in Plano. Now it seems every week we have a few days where we're always setting a new record, and that's well over 200 cases a day. And on the average, we're seeing about 150 cases a day now, which really the curve has gone way up since the first of the year. So hopefully with the vaccine out now, hopefully slowly but surely we'll see that curve go down, and let's hope it's sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like at this point, everybody knows somebody personally in their lives. Instead of just saying, I've heard of somebody who had COVID, you feel like you actually know somebody now who has COVID, had COVID, or is quarantining for possible exposure to COVID.
Absolutely. I remember, March, April, May, a lot of us were asking, do you know anybody who's actually had the virus? Well, now, a lot of people who have had the virus with 4% of our population. That's 4 out of every 100 people.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and yet it's still a relatively low percent of our population. So
Mhm.
that just tells you that as the percentage goes up, the odds are you're going to know somebody. So we want you to continue to follow those safe health practices to protect yourself, because we are waiting on the vaccine. I think that's probably a good transition point to talk about what we know now.
Mhm.
I'm just going to be, transparent and tell everybody we're recording this on January 11th. It'll probably take us a couple days to get this pushed out because we're busy, but just so you have like a little timestamp for reference. So the vaccine rollout, Steve, did some math over the weekend because I had a lot of people talking and asking me questions about why is it taking so long to roll it out. And we understand. I think everybody who's eligible for a vaccine that wants one really wants one right now. And so it's hard to be patient. But did you realize, Steve, that it was the middle of November last year? So I think that's like 55 days ago was the day that they announced in the news that Pfizer had selected the state of Texas to be one of the locations for the trial of the new vaccine that they were looking at. So here we are 55 days later. Not only did they trial the vaccine, the FDA has, as of today, approved two vaccines from two different providers, um, Pfizer and Moderna, and they have deployed or started the process of deploying doses all across the country and for our purposes here in the state of Texas. And just for, again, out of curiosity, I looked it up. State of Texas, until we know our new census numbers, we have about 29.4 million people in the state. Um, that's pretty remarkable. So I tell you this because every time I get a little anxious and wish things could be going faster, it's helpful for me to remember a lot has happened in a very short period of time. And it's hard to remember that because time still kind of feels immaterial to all of us. So, I mean, wouldn't you agree? It's a lot of work that the state has done.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, so still the biggest problem that everybody faces right now, and we understand, demand outpaces supply at the moment. It's important to understand that the state of Texas is managing the vaccine distribution process. So the city is not, our counties are not, the state is. And the state is, distributing the vaccine to local health providers, to hospitals, to pharmacies, to federal health partners. And over the weekend, they announced that they're distributing them to large public vaccination sites. That process is just beginning. So I think what we can safely say is that we will continue to learn more about the distribution process, but it is ramping up. It is not final. It is
Right.
moving forward. Um, there are a couple of things you can do if you are eligible for the vaccine. And the state has said the priorities right now are what they call phase 1A and phase 1B. Phase 1A is healthcare workers and public safety. Phase 1B are individuals 65 and older, or individuals who are 16 and older with underlying health conditions. And the state has specified what those underlying health conditions are. We will put a link to that in the show notes, but I have an even better source for you where you can find all of that. We've put the links on plano.gov/vaccine. And I'm going ahead and saying that out loud. So if you don't want to go to the show notes to find it, you'll know that's a new page on our website, plano.gov/vaccine. It has the link to what classifies as 1A and 1B. It also has two other links that you'll want to click on, depending on what part of the city you live in, if you are a phase 1A or a phase 1B person who is eligible to receive the vaccine. You will want to get on the Collin County wait list if you live in the Collin County portion of Plano, or you'll want to get on the Denton County wait list if you're in the Denton County portion of Plano. And that's a smaller portion. Most of Plano is in Collin County, but there are two separate wait lists. Now, those are supplemental wait lists and distribution sites. A lot of work is going into vaccinations and whatnot through the counties. It's also a very good idea and maybe a preferable idea to call your doctor and to call your pharmacy. Don't call all of them, just call, call your doctor, call your preferred pharmacy, and ask them two questions. First, do you have any doses of the vaccine available? If the answer is no, then are you maintaining a wait list of your patients who would like to receive the vaccine? Many, and I would say if not many, most are keeping a separate wait list from the one that the counties are. So get on your doctor's wait list. In fact, my doctor's office in Plano sent out a survey. It went to all patients asking, are you interested at some point in receiving the COVID vaccine? Now, I don't meet any of the qualifications, but my name is in their database, and they can match it up against my health records so that when my number is called, when whatever phase I'm in, what my phase is called, then they can reach out and let me know that a vaccine is available. And we all think that as vaccine supplies increase, that will be the preferential way to get your vaccine through those local providers because they know their patients and it's usually easier to get in. But there are other alternatives. I also want to tell people in Plano that the city of Plano has volunteered to be one of those major public vaccination sites. We haven't heard back from the state yet that we've been selected, but we have volunteered. Um, and just in preparation for the possibility of being selected, our team is working very hard
Mhm.
on planning for that event, what that would look like to make it as streamlined of a process as possible. But many things are changing all the time, which is why we're not telling you what the plan is, because we don't actually know that it's a confirmed plan. So just be aware that we are doing what we can, as are our neighboring cities, as is Collin County, Denton County. There's a lot of hard work happening behind the scenes and coordinating back with the state of Texas. So, do you
Let's
think
talk
we've
about.
talked enough about COVID?
Well, no, I
No?
want to emphasize what you said, Sean, is that our city management is committed, like you said, to doing what we can. Bottom line is, as a city government, we want to help get those shots in arms as quickly as possible. In any way we can help, we're committed to doing that. So it still hasn't played out completely, but the commitment from the city is there. So
Yeah.
let's talk about some of the other things that are going on in town. We had the State of the City address with
Yep.
the Plano Chamber of Commerce, and
Yeah.
this was an important one for our mayor.
Yeah, it's his last one. Mayor LaRosse-Lier's term of office expires in May. He's ineligible to run for another term. So, State of the City, depending on when you're listening to this broadcast, is January 14th. But no worries if you didn't catch it live. By the way, it's free in partnership with the Plano Chamber and Plano Independent School District. You can find the entirety of the State of the City event on our YouTube channel, and we'll also share it over to Facebook.
We heard so much about the general election in November. Of course, we were electing a president, but really, what happens locally really impacts your life a lot more than what happens at the federal level. So we actually have some local elections that are coming up in May. We have council members for places 2 and 4 and 6, which is the mayor. We'll have a new mayor, and number 8 as well. And that election will be conducted on May 1st, 2021. The candidates for places 2 and 4 must reside uh, in the respective districts. All places are elected at large, which means anyone in the city can vote for any of the candidates from any of the places. All candidates then represent all parts of the city. Are you registered to vote? Because if you're not, you can go to votetexas.gov and register there. And Shannah, we also have a bond referendum coming up.
Yes. Well, we assume we're going to have one. Council still needs to actually call for it, but they've been working towards that possibility, and it's expected that they will call one. As of right now, a citizen review board is looking over a huge list of potential projects to include in the bond, and council's also listening to presentations from various departments, and they're reviewing lists of information for possible inclusion. And they're going to decide that final list during their January 25th meeting. If they decide to call the bond referendum, they'll decide to do that at their February 8th meeting. So, a lot of times, Steve, people ask, why do a bond? Why not just go ahead and budget for this kind of stuff? And I think that's a good question, right? I mean, it's kind of confusing of why would you do a bond versus why not just impact the tax rate and, raise our taxes or lower our taxes. It's a little more complex than that.
Mm.
So a bond is really to allow them to finance projects over time. And just because we vote yes or vote no, if a bond is approved, that doesn't mean that the debt is taken that day. They can do it over time, take out debt when they're ready to do the projects. And so that allows, there are all kinds of tax exemptions and ways to stagger debt so that we keep our debt burden at a reasonable point, which is preferably, on the lower side. And it gives us a variety of repayment options. So it really actually minimizes the impact of doing these big projects on your property taxes. And also, we're talking about things like new facilities, major improvements, street, road work, sewer improvements, things like that. And so by doing it through a bond, it really kind of helps to make sure that people who are going to be living in Plano sometime in the future pay their fair share in the future for projects that they're enjoying, rather than people paying for it today and then maybe or maybe not getting to enjoy it later on. So just like the council elections, just make sure that you're registered to vote. That site that Steve told you about is not just to actually register. You can double check and make sure that you are on the Texas voter registration list. So it's a wealth of resources.
And Shannah, speaking of voting, we have a U.S. citizenship workshop coming up. It's an annual event, MCOR, which is the Plano's Multicultural Outreach Roundtable. They sponsor it every year. This year, of course, because of the pandemic, it's actually going to be a virtual event. The date is Saturday, February 13th, and you can learn about who can apply for U.S. citizenship, how and when to apply, as well as the benefits of citizenship. You'll also get help from citizenship and immigration services, and attorneys will be on site for filling out the citizenship application. It's a really important workshop. And like I said, it's annual. They have it every year, and it's usually very well attended.
Yeah. And more information on that will be on our website. And speaking of, we have a newly refreshed plano.gov, huge project that was underway during the pandemic. And we launched it on Monday, January 4th. And Steve and I felt like there was no one better to talk to about the new website than our very own communications manager for the city of Plano, Melissa Peachy. She oversaw the rollout of that site, as well as many other things. So we're going to have a great conversation with her.
Our special guest today is Melissa Peachy, who's the communications manager in Shannah's department, communications and community outreach. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We always like to start out the interviews by asking our friends and fellow workers to tell us something about themselves that we don't know. And I'll tell you, through the 4 years we've done this, we've learned a lot of really interesting things about people. So what is it about you that most of us don't know?
Let's see. Something that most of you don't know is that I was, many, many years ago, I was a poster child for United Way in St. Joe County, Indiana.
Really?
And the reason why I tell that story is because it folds in rather nicely with my current position.
And another thing about we call her Missy here at work, but another thing about her that most of us do know is that you're a Disney aficionado.
Yeah. I mean, if you put me up against other Disneyana collectors, I'm probably pretty small time, but most people would say, wow, you have a lot of Disney stuff.
Well, let me ask you this, Melissa. Your work with Plano involves a little bit of everything related to communications, but you have special oversight of digital and video communications. How did you get started in this line of work?
Well, I went to school for film studies, and then after I graduated, I moved to Texas from California, and was looking for a job, and I was watching television over the summer about 30 years ago this year, as luck would have it, and saw that Plano Television Network needed volunteers. So I came on down and they said, sure, we'll take you. And it kind of started from there. I think I always had an interest in two things: helping people, and I had an interest in communications technology because of the way you're able to reach a lot of people through that technology and create emotional connections and tell stories.
You said 30 years ago. Are you trying to tell us that you're older than 30? I never would have imagined that.
Yes, unfortunately, I sure am.
Well,
Just
Plano TV used to be a really big thing. And I know it's changed through the years. What's the current role of Plano Television?
Well, I think initially Plano TV was really kind of the crown jewel in the communications toolbox, in the sense that that's how we put out most of our information. That and print was really how we did things. Then as we moved into the 90s, you got website, and then of course social media now is kind of where it's at. And the reason why that is because social media is a place where everyone can kind of meet and come together. So video is still critically important. I think what has changed is the means by which we distribute that video information. Instead of it being on Plano TV as a TV channel, it is disseminated more primarily through social media and on YouTube and things like that, and Facebook, so that we're getting it to the people that really are interested in what we have to offer.
Yeah, Melissa, when I joined the city, it was so interesting to see kind of the television backbone that was here, a full control studio and broadcast studio downstairs. And you explained to me at the time that was because, it's a state requirement to provide accessibility to meetings, so you can actually watch and participate in meetings if you can't actually come. Well, it's been interesting, for residents over the years, and things certainly changed during COVID. But if residents want to watch a council meeting now or a planning and zoning meeting, where do they do that? Because television isn't quite the same as it used to be.
No, I mean, TV, if you think about any show that you used to, that used to be must-see TV for you. The whole idea of must-see TV was, if you didn't tune in at 8 or 8:30 on Monday night, you were going to miss I Love Lucy or whatever it was that you were looking for. Nowadays, those opportunities to watch those shows are everywhere, and that's the same for us. Because of video on demand, you can go to the website anytime, planotv.org, or you can access it right through plano.gov, and you can watch a city council meeting, you can watch a planning and zoning meeting, you can watch any of our segments online anytime you want. And the great part about that is, people's lives are so busy, and so it doesn't often work to say, well, if I want to know what's going on with this council meeting item, I have to be at Plano City Hall at 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I could miss it. Well, that's not true now. And actually, one of the really good things that has come out of the pandemic is that we're even more accessible to people now, even if they want to speak at a meeting, because we're broadcasting those meetings over Zoom, so people are able to connect in and make their comments, show their presentations, and really still be a full-fledged part of those meetings and those discussions.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the pandemic because it certainly had a huge impact on the staff that work in Plano Television News. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the changes that team kind of went through?
So I think that in actuality, I mean, obviously nobody wants to have a pandemic, right? But I think one of the great things that have come out of this is that it has given us new technologies, new ways to connect with each other. And even though a lot of our segment production, if you will, our feature production kind of stopped because we weren't able to go out and say, go to Joe's house and tell a story about Joe and what Joe was doing in the Plano community, because he wasn't doing that because of the pandemic. We've been able to really play a key role in helping departments to still offer online video programming, for example, Parks and Rec and sustainability. They couldn't have people come for tours and things like that, and go on walking tours of the parks. So we would go out and, just a couple of us, socially distanced, with masks on, and we would film these things so that we could then deliver these experiences to the public through video. So it's been really, I don't want to say great, but it's been an opportunity to really still help maintain that connection with our community and our citizens during a very difficult time.
Let's talk about one big thing that changed this month, and that's plano.gov got a facelift. What changed?
Yes, it actually got a lot more than a facelift. Actually, it was a facelift and a tummy tuck and probably some, internal organs were transplanted as well. So basically, we're on a new platform, which doesn't mean anything to the average person, except that it helps us to deliver information to you more efficiently, and hopefully down the road helps us to deliver the same piece of content to you in multiple places without having to recreate it multiple times for multiple different platforms. So, for example, if we post something about road construction, what we used to have to do was somebody posted it on the website, somebody would put that information on a digital bulletin board, somebody would upload it to Waze, and by having this new platform, what we'll eventually be able to do is connect all of those distribution channels together and deliver that same one piece of content with the press of a button. So it eliminates inefficiencies, and also what it really does right now for the citizen, before we did this process, we had about a 2,000 page website, close to it. When I crawled the website over the weekend, we now are down to 1,000. So cutting our page numbers in half means that it will be easier for you to find the content that you need when you go to the website. So that's a very big thing. We've also added some other things that really help you find information easily, in terms of a very robust search feature that's right on the homepage, and it's on every page of the website, and you can choose whether you want to search a specific department or you want to search the whole website. So it's things like that. Technology-based things are the reason why we do it. We don't do it to mess up everybody's bookmarks or just to make it look different. We do it because the technology behind it actually provides you a better experience. And also, while we're doing that, hopefully we implement some design features and some design choices that makes it easier for you when you're looking for things on the website.
What was it like launching a new website in the middle of a pandemic?
Difficult. I would say not really because of the pandemic, but I will say it's about a 1.5 year process to do a major effort like this. Less when you're just doing it to make it look different. But since this was giving it a new design, giving it a new platform, giving it a major overhaul in terms of the content, we worked on it for about a 1.5 years, and about close to 10 months of that has been over the internet, if you will, during the pandemic. Meeting with departments. Normally, you would have those meetings face to face. There would be more of that going on, and all that was done over Zoom and Skype. And so it's a little bit different, but I think in terms of the pandemic, I think what maybe made it a little bit harder is that all of us as a city are dealing with the huge challenges of the pandemic itself. And then thinking, oh, now I have to think about the website too. And so trying to prioritize that for departments that are so heavily affected by the pandemic has been challenging, but everyone's done a really great job. And you'll see the website, even though it's launched now, the website is being updated every day. It's a living document, if you will. And so now that we're launched and we don't have the strain of trying to upkeep the old website and focus on the new website, you'll see the new website will continue to be a work in progress and continue to get more and more useful and new features and things like that.
Yeah, and so it's also always interesting to have your launch date coincide right after, a long holiday weekend, right after vaccine rollout starts in earnest. So just the fear of a failed launch and a crashed website when people are looking for information, I know was a huge burden for you all. And your team did a great job, Missy. I mean, I think this site is fabulous. We know internally we have a lot of things we want to work on, but the external experience is just terrific. How many sites, because you've been pretty much involved with every site that's come through the city, even though at one time it was housed out of a different department.
Mm-hmm.
How many of the sites now for plano.gov have you kind of notched?
It's 6 that I've been completely involved in, and 7, and the city's only had, when you think about it, the city over the last 25 years or so has had about seven major websites, and I've been totally involved in 6 of them. And the very first one, I was involved at the level of our department being PTN. So it's been it's been a journey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you're a treasure in the city and on our team because you have been here, for more than 25 years. Everybody knows Melissa Peachy because of the role that you play, first with Plano Television, news, coming in to help with just the broadcast, all the way to really taking a lead role in the web. and now a leader on our team, and providing mentoring and supervision for our staff. And just like, we couldn't do what we do without you. So it's amazing to me. But what I would love to hear from you, is if you wouldn't mind telling listeners of the podcast, what you've noticed in those 25 years is kind of the biggest change in how we communicate with our residents, and kind of what, if there are any implications of that change.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that initially coming aboard the city, it was kind of more, if you will, it was kind of more of, okay, we need to push this information out. And so you put the information out, whether it be in a video or a print piece or a utility bill, and it's out there, and it's kind of like, okay, great, thank you. And there wasn't a lot of two-way communication back and forth. And so now with the implementation of especially social media, the citizen has a lot more ability to instantaneously respond to whatever we're putting out there, which is great because from the perspective of the video especially, we worked many years, day in and day out, producing 30-minute and 60-minute shows, and never having really any idea at all if anyone was watching, if they were watching, what were they watching, what did they like, what did they not like. There was really no feedback. And so now for us, even though social media is probably in the forefront of everything we do as a department, the video really hasn't, the video experience has really benefited from that, because by putting video out on social media, you have a built-in ability to see, oh, they watched, 5 minutes of this video, but only 30 seconds of that video. So you know right away what people are responding to, what they like, what they don't like, and you have metrics in a way that we, as a what they call government access television station, never had before. Now, I know Steve, in his days at, in broadcast TV, they have all kinds of services instantly to say, oh, this worked, that worked, they didn't like the shirt you had on today, all kinds of, data coming on. I like the shirt. But there's all kinds of data coming at you in a broadcast news facility that you don't have access to as a government access station. Now that all of that content is on social media, we have metrics. One of the most exciting things for us right now is that over the course of the last year or so, we have grown our YouTube channel to over 11,000 subscribers, which some people are probably going, well, that's not very many people. But if you think about it in terms of, going from not having any idea whether anyone's watching to knowing that you have 11,000 people, that's kind of, that's a big boost. And so that's really how it has changed, is being able to have that feedback, being able to talk to people instantaneously, and the real two-way communication.
Yeah, and I'd give you an updated number, because I just looked at the end of the year report. It's actually more than 13,000 now.
Is it really?
Yeah, we had a huge boost last year for all the reasons that you were saying. I find it interesting. I think I did some math last year and found out that the city of Plano's, YouTube channel is the largest government YouTube channel outside of the federal governments. And, it's a little hard to compete with the National Park Service. And
Yeah,
others.
they have a lot of venues they can explore.
Exactly. Well, Melissa, we are so glad you joined us on the podcast, and we are even more glad that you are our colleague, and we appreciate so much all that you do to help residents of Plano and to help our communications team as well as our colleagues throughout Team Plano. We've been talking to Melissa Peachy, Communications Manager for the City of Plano.
And Melissa, I want to add congratulations on your 3 decades with the City of Excellence.
Yes.
Oh, well, it's been a pleasure, mostly because I get to work with people like you and Shannah. You always learn something new every day. People say, "Aren't you bored?" And there's just no possibility to be bored, really. If you're bored, it's your own fault.
Thank you. Words of wisdom. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Well, Steve, I think we understand it's going to be a busy spring, lots of changing information, particularly with the COVID vaccine. So best advice I can give people, continue to follow the city's social channels. If you're not receiving one of the city's emails, sign up because that information is also shared out that way. And we always include information for everything on plano.gov/COVID-19.
And don't forget, now more than ever, we really need to support the local businesses in our community. We have more than 26 million square feet of various businesses who really need our support. And by supporting them, local businesses, whether in person, online, or even for curbside pickup, you're helping your neighbors and the folks who work in these businesses. So you can find our easy online guide to local businesses participating in this in our show notes.
Yep, just shop Plano, shop Plano. And, I think that probably wraps our show for today. We really look forward to seeing you all virtually again on our podcast. And even more so, Steve, don't we look forward to seeing people in person? I long for the day.
Me too. I miss the hugs.
I do too. It's been a long, hard road, Plano, but I think we can see light at the end of the tunnel. Things are going to return to a new version of normal for the city that we call home, and we can't wait for that day. If you have questions, comments, or thoughts on things you'd like us to cover in a future episode of Inside Plano, just let us know. Send us an email at askplano@plano.gov. Until then, talk to you next time.
Bye, everybody. And that's it for our Inside Plano. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did doing it.
If you have any comments or suggestions, send them to us at askplano@plano.gov. Bye.
Talk to you next month. The Inside Plano podcast is brought to you by the City of Plano.